June 18, 1944, just after sunrise. A half-destroyed farmhouse stood quietly on the edge of the Norman countryside, its upper floor exposed to the morning light. From one of its shattered windows, a German sergeant scanned the American lines, shouting orders with sharp confidence. He believed the danger was in front of him. He never imagined it was above him, hidden, silent, and patient, miles away. Inside a concrete grain silo that most soldiers would dismiss as useless farm equipment, an American sniper waited without moving. He had been there since the night before. No food except ration bars, no comfort, no escape route, just concrete walls, a narrow slit cut into steel, and a rifle resting on sandbags. This was not a position taught in any military manual. It was a position learned through years of farm labor, long before the war ever began. The sniper's name was Raymond Kozlowski, a quiet dairy farmer from rural Wisconsin. He did not come from military tradition or elite academies. He came from mud, livestock, broken fences, and grain silos. As a teenager, he had climbed into those same vertical concrete towers to clear clogged grain, spending hours alone in suffocating darkness, while others feared them. Raymond learned their secrets: height, isolation, patience. War brought him to France, and France brought him a problem the army could not solve. German snipers dominated the battlefield using elevation. Church towers, barn lofts, water towers. American troops were dying with frightening precision. Officers fell first, radio men second. Anyone who gave orders was marked. Traditional counter-sniper tactics failed. Artillery was unavailable. Tanks could not elevate. Infantry could not see the shooters. Raymond watched friends die. Men he trained with. Men he played cards with. Each death carved something sharp into his memory. It became clear to him that the Germans weren't just better shots. They were better positioned. They understood elevation. And Raymond understood something even better. The battlefield was surrounded by structures no one considered military assets. Silos. Tall, reinforced, overlooked, and perfectly placed. Farmers ignored them. Soldiers ignored them. But Raymond saw opportunity where others saw nothing. From inside a silo, a sniper could see miles of terrain while remaining invisible. Thick concrete offered protection. Narrow ventilation slots offered perfect firing lanes. And most importantly, the enemy never looked there. On that morning, Raymond's crosshairs settled on the German sergeant's chest. He controlled his breathing the same way he once had while hunting. Pests on farmland. Slow. Calm, certain. One shot echoed inside the silo like thunder in a cave. The sergeant collapsed. German command faltered instantly. That single pull of the trigger marked the beginning of something new. Not just another kill, but a shift in how war would be fought in the countryside. A tactic born from agriculture, not doctrine. A method that would quietly spread and change the balance of power across an entire front. And this was only the first shot. What happened next would terrify German commanders and turn forgotten. Farm structures into the deadliest sniper positions of the war. The shot did not just kill a sergeant. It exposed a weakness the German forces never considered. Within minutes, confusion rippled through their line. Orders stopped flowing. Officers hesitated. Rifles searched rooftops and tree lines, but the threat stayed invisible. The enemy looked everywhere except where Raymond actually was. Inside the silo, Raymond did not celebrate. He did not rush. He stayed still, letting the echo fade, letting the dust settle. A sniper's survival depended on discipline more than accuracy. He waited, counting seconds in his head, listening for boots, engines, or shouted warnings. Nothing came. The silo remained ignored. Just another piece of rural scenery swallowed by war. That was when he understood the full power of the position. From his height, he could see troop movements forming before they reached American lines. He could read shadows, spot helmets, track radio operators by their antennas, Every small detail became a signal, and every signal became an advantage. Raymond took his second shot an hour later. This time, a German radio operator, adjusting his equipment near a hedgerow. One round, clean, silent from the outside. The enemy assumed it came from the same direction as before. They were wrong again. Word traveled fast among American units. A rumor spread about an unseen sniper who could neutralize enemy command without ever being detected. Officers did not know his name, but they knew the result. Casualties dropped. Movement became safer. Confidence returned. Eventually, Raymond was ordered down. Intelligence officers questioned him, not with suspicion, but with curiosity. How was he doing it? Where was he shooting from? When he explained the silo, the room fell quiet. No one had considered it. No manual mentioned it. No training exercise imagined it. Command hesitated at first. War does not like improvisation unless it works. Then it likes it very much. Soon, Raymond was not alone. Other sharpshooters were reassigned. Farmers, hunters, men who understood height and patience. They were trained quickly, then placed into silos across liberated farmland. Each position was different, but the principle stayed the same. Invisible elevation, concrete protection, psychological dominance. German units began reporting sniper activity with no visible origin. Morale suffered. Soldiers refused to move during daylight. Officers avoided exposed positions. Some units delayed advances simply out of fear. A single unseen rifle was shaping the battlefield, more than entire platoons. Raymond returned to his silo one final time that week. He took fewer shots now. He did not need to. The presence alone was enough. Sometimes, power comes not from action, but from the threat of it. As the sun dipped low, he packed his rifle and climbed down, knowing something irreversible had started. But once the Germans realized the threat was not random, they launched a ruthless hunt that would turn the silos themselves into death traps. German response came swiftly and without mercy. Once patterns emerged, once enough reports confirmed the same invisible threat, command concluded that this was not luck. It was strategy, and strategies demanded elimination. Orders were issued quietly at first. Patrols were instructed to observe rural structures, not churches, not towers, farms, grain storage. Tall concrete cylinders that had once stored harvests were now considered potential execution chambers. Soldiers were told to treat them as hostile, even if they appeared empty. This shift changed everything. Raymond sensed it before anyone warned him. From his elevated position, he noticed patrol behavior changing. Men no longer crossed open fields casually. Binoculars swept silos longer than barns. Artillery units paused, adjusting angles they had never used before. The countryside itself felt watched. On the third day, the first shell struck a silo 5 kilometers east of Raymond's position. The explosion cracked the concrete like an eggshell. Dust and debris shot into the sky. There was no return fire, no warning, just destruction. The message was clear. If they suspected a silo, they would erase it. American command reacted fast. Snipers were rotated more frequently. Occupation times were shortened. Some silos were abandoned after only one engagement. Others were rigged with false indicators to draw fire away from active positions. War had become a game of misdirection. Raymond adapted. He stopped firing from the same slit twice. He learned how sound traveled inside the concrete walls and adjusted his timing. He fired less, but each shot mattered more. He targeted decision-makers only. One kill could stop an entire maneuver. Then came the close call. A German reconnaissance unit approached his silo near dusk. Raymond saw them from nearly a mile away, moving slowly, deliberately. They did not rush. They circled. One man pointed upward. Another marked something on a map. Raymond knew the routine. Artillery would follow. He made a choice few snipers ever had to make. He fired intentionally early, exposing his position, but only briefly. One shot, one officer down. Then he moved. Inside the silo, he climbed down through grain residue and steel ladders, exiting through a rear service hatch most silos had but few people knew about. By the time artillery struck, Raymond was already gone, crawling through irrigation ditches as the structure above him shattered. The silo collapsed minutes later. Concrete thundered into itself. The Germans believed they had won, that they were wrong. That night, Raymond relocated to another silo 3 miles west. By dawn, he was back in position. The fear returned. The uncertainty returned. The invisible rifle returned. German units began to hesitate, even after destroying silos. They no longer trusted results. They no longer trusted silence. The battlefield had changed permanently, and as this tactic spread across the front, it created a psychological weapon far more powerful than the rifle itself. Fear does not always arrive loudly. Sometimes it settles quietly into the bones of an army and refuses to leave. That is what the silo sniper tactic did to German forces. It was no longer about casualties alone. It was about uncertainty. Every open field felt exposed. Every farm structure felt hostile. Even silence became suspicious. Reports flooded German command posts describing shots fired from impossible angles. Men swore bullets came from the sky itself. Others claimed they saw no muzzle flash, no movement, no sound beyond the crack of impact. Officers stopped giving orders from open positions. Maps were studied indoors. Radios stayed low. Command slowed, not because of resistance, but because of doubt. Raymond saw the effect clearly. Entire units froze at tree lines for hours. Patrols refused to advance without artillery clearance. Simple maneuvers took entire days, all because of a threat they could not see or fully understand. American leadership noticed the shift. What began as an improvised solution had evolved into a doctrine of disruption. Training manuals were quietly updated. Sniper schools began teaching unconventional elevation use. Rural environments were no longer treated as neutral terrain. They were weaponized. Raymond was pulled from the front briefly and debriefed again. This time, generals listened closely. They asked about angles, visibility, ventilation slots, echo behavior, and exit routes. He answered calmly, like a farmer explaining machinery. To him, it was never magic, just observation and patience. Soon, silos were no longer the only structures used. Water tanks, windmill platforms, even abandoned factory chimneys. But silos remained the most effective. They blended perfectly. Too common to suspect. Too strong to destroy casually. Too tall to ignore. German countermeasures grew harsher. Entire farm complexes were flattened preemptively. Civilians were displaced. Supplies were burned. Yet the fear did not vanish. If anything, it grew stronger. Destroying a silo did not mean safety anymore. It only meant the sniper had moved. Raymond returned to combat with a new role. He was no longer just a shooter. He was a mentor. He taught younger snipers how to wait without moving, how to think like terrain, how to disappear without camouflage. He told them one rule above all others: if the enemy knows where to look, you have already lost. As Allied forces pushed deeper, the silo tactic followed, quietly, efficiently, ruthlessly. It never made headlines. It never earned medals. But it saved lives. Hundreds of them. Raymond never counted his confirmed kills. He counted something else. Days when no one died on his side. Days when the enemy refused to advance. Days when silence won. And in that silence, the war bent slightly in a new direction. But when the fighting finally ended, the most dangerous battle for Raymond was still waiting for him back home. When the war finally loosened its grip on Europe, Raymond did not feel victory the way others did. There were no parades in his mind, no flags, no music, just silence. The same silence he had learned to weaponize now followed him everywhere. He returned to Wisconsin quietly, stepping back into a life that looked unchanged on the surface. The same fields, the same barns, the same silos standing against the sky. But Raymond was not the same man who had climbed those ladders years before. The war had taught him patience beyond farming, stillness beyond hunting, and awareness that never truly turned off. Neighbors welcomed him home, but few asked questions. Fewer still understood what he had done. Raymond did not correct them. He never spoke about Normandy, never spoke about silos becoming instruments of death. He went back to dairy work, waking before dawn, moving through routine like muscle memory. At night, though, the past returned, the echo of a rifle shot bouncing inside concrete walls, the long hours without movement, the knowledge that one decision could end a life or save many. He learned that surviving war did not mean leaving it behind. It meant carrying it quietly. Years later, military historians would stumble across scattered reports, unexplained sniper dominance, German hesitation in rural sectors, references to vertical concealment positions. No single document credited Raymond. No official doctrine bore his name. His contribution lived between footnotes and after-action reports. Yet the impact remained. Modern sniper training still teaches unconventional elevation. Urban warfare borrows the same principles. Even counter-sniper doctrine evolved because of what happened in those fields. All of it traced back to one farmer who understood space differently than soldiers trained by books. Raymond lived a long life. He raised a family. He repaired fences. He climbed silos one last time in old age, not to fight, but to look. From the top, the land stretched wide and peaceful. No helmets, no gunfire, just wind and grain and sky. When he passed, there were no medals on display, no headlines. But the men who lived because of him never forgot. Even if they never knew his name, war often celebrates noise, explosions, charges, heroes standing tall. But sometimes, the most powerful force is silence, patience, and an overlooked place where no one thinks to look. Raymond understood that, and because of him, the battlefield changed forever. The next time you see an ordinary structure, ask yourself this one question. What stories are hiding inside it, waiting for the world to notice? If this hidden story changed the way you see war and history, make sure you subscribe now, so you never miss powerful untold stories like this one. Like this video to support deep, real storytelling that goes beyond textbooks and exposes what history often leaves out. Comment below and tell us which forgotten war story you want uncovered next, because